So, how many of you guys locate? All of you? How many like it? Let's see those hands. Nobody likes it, right? Is it because you don't do it a lot, or you just don't like the process?
It's the most time-consuming thing we have on our job site.
Right.
Right.
So, but it's also the most valuable because it helps guys not hit stuff, right? It stops downtime. Downtime's the worst for any job. I'm sure you hear that shit all the time, right? Hey, what's taking so long out there? Well, we hit a cable. That slowed everything down. So, Kirk switched you guys over to the radio detection brand last year, summertime or fall, something like that.
Yeah.
How many of you guys are using the new ones? You guys can't hear me?
Right there on the footing.
Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. So, how many of you guys have been using the new ones?
Well, probably half of you guys in here using those.
You're all allowed to raise your hands, answer the questions. I'm asking because I want to know because, you know, what features, since you've been using them, do you like the best? Since you raised your hand. First of all, do you just locate phone?
Phone, sometimes if we have any problems locating gas, we'll try to hook on the wire they've got out there. Or power lights on for businesses, we'll try clamping on them.
The private stuff?
The private stuff, yes.
So I'm sure you're on a lot of private property.
Right.
All right. Well, for the most part, everything that you hook onto, since you bought you bought 10-watt transmitters, Kirk, or 5?
8 or 10, 1 or 2.
10-watt transmitters?
Yeah.
So you guys should be using 256 hertz most of the time.
Okay.
Okay, that is the lowest frequency available, and it is going to create the less amount of bleed off that you could put on a line. So if you guys don't know anything about locating, the whole theory behind locating is you put your ground in the ground, you put your lead on that, and then you put your lead on what you're hooked onto. What color goes on which, it doesn't matter. It's red because it's red because they want that to go on the hot, but you could put it on the ground, it doesn't matter. So, and all your signal is doing is going down that pipe or cable as far as it can and still being able to see your ground rod. Okay? So, if your ground rod is too close to where you're hooked up to, two things can happen. Instead of the signal going down the cable, it'll jump onto your ground. It looks like you have a signal, but your signal's going to the ground rather than going on the cable. So the leads are 20 feet long for a reason. Get your ground rod 15 feet away from where you're hooked onto. Don't put it right next to the pedestal, which we've all done because it's right there, but get your lead and get it away. So that'll prevent it from jumping on the line, and the other thing it'll do is it will enable you to go 2 or 3 times farther than you normally do if you got your ground too close. Because it's easier for your signal going out to find that ground if it's farther away from the box. We sell a locator for gas pipeline companies. Instead of a 10-watt transmitter, they have a 150-watt transmitter. It actually takes a generator to power the thing. But when they hook on, they can go 20 miles. But they put a ground rod 300 feet out, and then they get 5 5-foot probes, and they put them in a series, and they ground them all together. That's how they create a ground for something that powerful. So another thing, this is not a great ground rod. The reason we sell it this size is because we don't want to take liability when you guys stick it through a gas service. Theoretically, I mean, we're putting something in the ground, what should we be doing? Calling Julie, right? That's the law. But we make them this long, so, you know, there's a good chance you're not going to hit anything. But if you guys are carrying probes and it's 100 degrees all summer and it's been dry for 3 months, get a probe out because it's going to be a heck of a lot better than this as a ground. This is probably the most important thing you can do is have a good ground. It doesn't have to go in the ground straight, it can go sideways. As long as you've just got coverage over that ground rod, It's going to help you get a better signal. So when you guys hook onto a line, you're trying to do a couple things. You're trying to get your signal to go as far as it can and create no bleed off, right? So on these transmitters, like we talked about that day when I was in the shop, these transmitters have a multimeter on it. And this multimeter tells you how much current you're putting on a line and how many volts it's taken to create that current. These are 10-watt transmitters. They create 30 volts, up to 30 volts if you need it, and it gives you your milliamps. And your milliamps are what you're locating. The voltage is the power it's taken to push it down the line, but the milliamps are what's actually going down the line. So on the bottom corner right here, it tells me I'm putting out 35 milliamps. Then when I turn on my transmitter and I find that line, I should pick up 35 milliamps. That's the idea. If it's a water line, you probably pick up about 15 because nothing holds a signal on a water line. There's no coating on it to keep the signal on it. But tracer wire, fiber, phone, electric, they all have a nice insulator on it so you don't lose many milliamps when you're going down the line. And these receivers tell you how many milliamps you're picking up. So your depth is always here in the corner when you're over the line, and your milliamps are here on the corner so you can see how much current I'm picking up. It's important, because if you guys pick up a line here and it says it's 3 feet deep, and you pick up a line here and it says it's 2'11", it's too close to call which one is actually phone or cable TV or electric, right? But this one's telling me it's 15 milliamps and this one's telling me it's 28. What am I going to locate? 28, right? Because that's the one I've put the signal on. That 15 is just bleed off. So that's what you're looking for on locators. They're not just a signal finder. They can tell you a lot more information than you would ever expect. So, you know, these locators have the compass on there, and how many of you guys have taken advantage of that with the new locators? You're the only one that locates, right?
Right.
You got these guys trained. They don't want to say a word.
No, they're afraid.
I will not make fun of you, man. Trust me. I was a locator too for a long time. Made mistakes, did all that stuff. And they didn't teach us what all these buttons and all these displays meant. They just said, get a signal and locate it. That's how they taught us. We actually go back to USIC trainers now and train them how to use the locators so that they can teach their guys what all this stuff is for. We just thought the milliamps were just a fun thing that showed up on the screen. We didn't have a clue why we would care about them. So, you know, one of the problems that you guys will have if you use too high a frequency is bleed off. So, when you guys locate now, what frequency do you use most of the time? Anybody besides Kurt? They don't locate, man.
No, apparently not.
They're just out there witching sticks.
Usually
8.1? Anybody else? Eight's that number that people have used for a long time just because it's good, right? It doesn't create a lot of bleed off, and it's a good signal. If you got a deep line, you can still pick it up. But if you guys thought of your frequency as a circle, and I said 256 is the lowest, but that's because it's 256 hertz. 8 is kilohertz. So if you think about the circle size, 256 hertz would be this big. 32 kilohertz, or 8 kilohertz would be 32 times bigger. Okay? Which means that instead of lighting up this part of the trench, I'm setting a signal in the trench and out into the street. And if you go to 33, it's even bigger than that, and bigger than that. So we try to keep the circle small so it can stay on the conductor we're trying to locate. Another thing that will cause bleed off is if you go to the foam ped and you just hook directly to the cable. Everybody here's got a ped tool. Just disconnect the bond. If you don't disconnect the bond, you're going to pick up the electric that's back at the house. You're going to pick up the cable TV that's coming off the pole. Isolate the cable you're hooking onto and locate that. And that's all you're going to pick up. Or a heck of a lot less than anything else you would have picked up. But if you keep it on 256, undo that bond. Sorry, guys. Undo that bond, you'll be fine. It's all about reducing your bleed off. If you locate your line and you can't get a good solid depth, but it's giving you a good signal strength, sweep some more because you might just be picking up a bleed off signal. And when you get that solid depth and your compass is straight, then you're going to be on the line that you're actually looking for. Didn't ring all morning until I got here. So isolate when you can. Now, I know you can't disconnect power at a building. That's not going to happen, especially when you're on private property. But that's okay, because on that building, you know, if they have phone and they have cable TV going to the building, they also have their own bonds at the building. Just disconnect those bonds from those pedestals or those interfaces, and then your cable or your electric is isolated from that ground at the building, and you should be able to locate the electric without locating everything else. But you can't unbond anything. You're picking up 3 lines, and you're on 256 hertz or 4 kilohertz. One of the main features that is on here is current direction, and we've talked about this before too. And what happens is when you hook onto your line, your current will always go away from the box. So let's say I hook onto a water hydrant and the pipe's going in both directions, the current's going in both directions. When you get your receiver and you find that line, there's an arrow on your screen that tells you your current's going away. And if I go over here, it'll do the same thing. It should point away. If I'm bleeding off, that arrow's pointing back at me. Pretty good tool. So you guys know right away, oh, I'm sweeping, pointing back, this isn't my line, keep sweeping, oh, here's a line going that direction, that's the one I'm looking for. So current direction is only on certain frequencies. It's on 256 and it's on 4 kilohertz. Another way to check yourself, guys, and this is with any locator you got. If you're locating and you pick up a line here and it says 3 feet deep, 20 milliamps. This one says 2 foot 11, 19 milliamps. That is way too close to make a judgment call on, okay? So just put your receiver to the top of the earth and raise it up a foot. If you raise it up a foot and it goes up a foot, that's the one you're connected to. Because the one you're bleeding off will not go up a foot. It might go down a foot, it might go up 2 inches, it just won't give you the right depth. And that's on a sub-site, a MetroTech, any machine out there. Just check your depth that way and it'll verify if you're locating the line or you're picking up a bleed off line. What else want me to go over, Kurt?
I want you to go over the clamp, what frequency you're supposed to be using when you're using the clamp.
Okay.
Guys, when we're locating on these, especially Frontier, we're going to put lots of stuff in the ground for them again this year. We do not open the enclosures to get into the bonds for the fiber, so you're going to have to clamp onto the splice enclosure. Sometimes those enclosures have been in water, underground. All the grounds are corroded, it doesn't locate very well. Well, every one of our locators now has a clamp that we can put on there. Will you continue there now, Dave?
Just make sure that the clamp, or that the fiber you're clamping to isn't dielectric.
Correct.
All right? You're not going to pick up anything on dielectric fiber. And you're not gonna ring clamp a tracer wire and locate it.
Right.
It's just not enough continuity in that little wire to do it. But if you are using a ring clamp, put your transmitter on 33 kilohertz and at least 2 bars of power. Don't be any lower than that because it's just an induction clamp and you need some power to get that signal to go down the line. Generally, you're saying that the bond is not good on these fibers?
Sometimes these kits, they get water inside of it and it just corrodes where it is bonded.
So the bonding strap is corroded and everything?
It's corroded. It's just, you're not going to get a very good signal. Last thing you want to do is plow through or bore through a fiber. So, and especially because it's going to be our fault, we're responsible for locating it. So when you're not getting a good signal by clamping on the outside of the box, you're not getting everything, use the clamp, put it on 33, and try to trace it out that way. You may have to go to the next pedestal and fiber pedestal and track it back the other way. But if you're having troubles like that, you'll have to make some phone calls and discuss what's going on. But that's why we have the clamp in here with these, so that we can get by that without opening up that splice enclosure. Because opening up the splice enclosure, if you don't have a splicer with you, can also cause some problems, so we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody had a question?
Yeah, you had mentioned compass. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, on the receiver, right here in the center of the screen is a compass. And that compass lines up with the electromagnetic signal that you're putting on that cable or pipe. So when you're over that line, that compass should be pointing in the direction that the signal's going. And when the cable starts to turn, the compass will turn in the direction that that cable is turning as you're approaching it. If you approach a T, like you're on a water main and there's a T up on it, as you approach that T, your compass will bounce back and forth. And when you pass that T, your compass will go straight, so you'll know to go back and find where the other section of pipe is connected.
They have the different frequencies that are on there. They have, you explain those?
The antennas?
Yeah, the antennas, yes, please.
Okay, so for all you guys that know how to locate and are comfortable with adjusting your sensitivity, there's peak. And peak is the most accurate antennas there are, okay? People like arrows, and null gives you arrows, but null is not accurate. It's not, I mean, we can do it right here. I can show you if I was on these lines and I was trying to null out a cable sitting right here, even if I have the receiver here where the cable is, it's gonna null out over here. And the reason that is the antennas are orientated differently inside of here. Those are peak antennas, and then you have 2 null antennas. And the reason null has a hard time with accuracy is because they're not directly over the line, they're reading from the side. And that's a problem when it's shallow or deep. Anything from 3 to 8 feet it's pretty accurate on, but shallower than that or deeper than that, or whenever you're in a turn, you'll never locate a turn in null mode and be directly on the line. You'll be off 18 to 30 inches in that turn if you're following the arrows. But if you're comfortable with using these sensitivity buttons and all that stuff, peak is your frequency. The other one for guys, and we should probably just have 2 available, peak or guidance mode. In guidance mode, all you have to do is turn your transmitter on, pick your frequency, turn your receiver on, make sure the frequency matches, and you never have to push a button on the screen. The machine does all the gain for you. So it can never be too high, it can never be too low. If that line goes from 3 feet to 10 feet, and how many guys have been locating, and there's a depth change and you lose your signal and you just start wandering around because you can't figure out if it turned or not, and then you remember, oh, let me just turn up the sensitivity, oh, I picked it up again, and I did because it went deep. You won't even know what happened on this mode, you'll just keep on walking. It's just gonna automatically do it for you. So my crews, like you guys, they love guidance mode because nobody wants to think about it. They just want to feel comfortable, and they know if the sensitivity is low, which it will stay as low as possible, less chance of bleed off. the higher I put my sensitivity on when I'm in peak mode, so if I have my sensitivity all the way up and the line is here, I could be way out here and start picking it up. And if you don't do this every day, you go, oh, I picked it up, and you just paint. Not realizing I got to turn it down and keep walking over until that signal goes up, down. That's what you're looking for, is a nice, I'll demonstrate. All right. So, when you're over the line, and when you're in peak mode, you want it to work like this. No tone. So that's peak, right? That's what you're looking for. If I turn my gain way up, I'm not even close to the line. I just went over 2 lines and couldn't even be within 3 feet of accuracy. So that's why sensitivity is important. And if you guys have that jacked up on your transmitter or your receiver all the time, and you're just picking up that high peak and you're putting paint down, you're not on the line. All right? And here's the problem with locating. You don't know you're right until they dig it up. Right? That's the problem with locating. People ask me, I located for 17 years, were you a good locator? They didn't hit stuff, but that doesn't mean I was right. They just weren't digging where I put paint. That's a fact, right? I mean, if you paint it up and they don't hit it, you don't know until they hit something. And when they do hit something and your paint's good, you feel good about it, but if they never call you, hell, I don't know, I guess I was good, but I could have been terrible. I just got lucky for 17 years. You just don't know. But you guys do know, because you're digging up the stuff that you locate, right? Most of the time, or you're not hitting it. So the good thing is, if you're not hitting it, then you must be doing something right. But I'll show you guidance mode. So guidance mode works like this. If I'm to the right, I'm going to hear that. I'm going to get over the line. It's going to be quiet. The 2 arrows will face each other. If I go to the left, it's a different tone. And you have these arrows that are telling you to go left or right. And you can see them right here on the screen. They're telling you to go right, or they're telling you to go left. When you're over the line, those arrows will face each other, and it'll be perfectly quiet. And again, I don't have to touch any buttons. Keeps it simple, keeps it real simple. You guys can just hook up and go. And the compass is right here, and you see how it's not facing any direction, but if I put it over the line, now it's facing the direction of the electromagnetic signal. Another thing you guys need to understand about locating is you're never ever locating the pipe or cable. That's not what you're locating. You're locating a signal. That's all you're locating. So if you're locating and that line that you're on is touching another line that's crossing in this direction for some reason, all your signal jumps on that, you're not locating this anymore. You're just locating a signal that jumped onto something else. So we always tell guys, when you hook onto a line and you get a signal, follow it to where it ends. Meaning, you go to a house or to a building, you hook onto that electric, you follow it to where the transformer is, or the pole is, or the other building it's going to. Because if you start locating it, it takes you to the water meter. Well, we know that wasn't the phone. Let's go find the phone. That's what you do. You have to follow it to the end. Another thing too is if you're in an area where there's a transformer and there's a phone pad, and there's a cable TV pad. Try not to locate from there. Try to go to the building where it's all going to and work it back. Because there's so many services coming out of these pedestals and out of these transformers that it's easier to go to the destination and work your way back than working from here and bleeding off onto 14 different drops or main lines coming out of those PEDs. Does that make sense? That's how we were always taught in the field, locate from the out back in. It'll just make your life that much easier. Other questions?
So you're saying if we set it on guidance mode at 256, everything's good?
That'll make your life easier, for sure. Now, if you're on water, go at least to 8. All right? But other than that, 256 ought to work 99% of the time. So on these transmitters, guys, when you hook onto the line, I told you there's a multimeter. And how much tracer you guys jump on? A lot?
Tracer wire? Not too much.
Not too much?
Mostly just the cable itself.
Just the cable?
Yeah.
So you hook onto a bond strap for a cable and a pedestal, and you put your ground in the ground, you hook onto that bond strap, and it's telling you that it's pushing 30 volts and you're getting 2 milliamps. Okay, that's not a good signal. I'm not going to locate this very well at all. So you get out a probe, you put it deeper in the ground, 30 volts, 2 milliamps. What do you think the problem is? Any guesses? The other end isn't grounded, right? So that if you go to that next pedestal down, those bond straps have probably been taken off by the USIC locator and never put them back on. That sucks, right? I mean, it's part of it. But if your transmitter's telling you that, so you can make your job a whole lot easier, just drive down to the next ped and check it and connect them. And then you'll locate for miles. If your whole phone system was grounded properly and you put this on 256 and 4 bars of power, you can go 10 miles. It's got that kind of power. And that's only using 30 volts. I can go in here and turn this from a 30 volt transmitter to a 90 volt transmitter just by pushing 2 buttons. Then you're going to locate a real long way. But the purpose of that is when you have a highly resistant line, like say you have a cut on a line and you're trying to jump that cut. You can do it if you put it at 90 volts, or you'll find out where it is cut because it'll ground it out right where that cut is. So your locator will walk you right to that point, and then you'll lose milliamps right where that cut is, and you'll find your cut. So yeah, as far as having a good hookup, always check your multimeter on your transmitter before you start locating. Another thing too, and I know you guys don't have prints of the water and stuff like that. I don't know how much you ever hook onto water. Not that much, but sometimes you will. And it can be really frustrating because you'll hook onto a water line and you'll go in that direction and your signal is really good. And you go in that direction, and that's the direction you need to go, and your signal's really bad. You know, and it's like, why is my signal bad going this way and good going this way? And the reason that happens is, again, your signal is going to go down, it's going to push more signal down the long stretch of pipe and less signal down the short stretch of pipe. So if there was 200 feet going that way and 800 feet going that way, it's going to send 80% of your signal this way and 20% of it that way. Well, 20% on a water line going that direction might give me 3 milliamps. And that's why I can only go 50 feet. And a lot of guys will go back to the box and they'll turn up the power higher. It does nothing. It's not going to help because you can't make it give more milliamps if it won't take more milliamps. So then they'll go to their receiver and they'll turn up that sensitivity as high as it'll go. How many guys have done that? Turn up that gain as high as you can to try and make a signal happen. Don't do that. You're just creating another way to pick up lead off. How many guys have watched other guys locate, and they're out there like this. Well, I'm locating Effingham, Peoria, Springfield, Champaign, because that's what you can do. I mean, these things are super sensitive, and this thing is rated to 100 feet deep. So if you start swinging it like this, and a signal for some reason is coming off a cable 100 feet away, you're gonna start walking this way. This is how you locate, guys. Arm straight, don't be bending your wrist, just back and forth. Keep your blade over the earth straight. Make your life a lot easier. And if you swing it hard enough, you can make it make a signal. Promise you that. Stuff's falling apart. Do you guys ever talk about power mode and radio mode? Okay. How many guys here are dig crews? Is it boring or digging?
We're all of the above.
Okay, so how many guys in the backhoes have ever started a job and felt 100% that everything's marked perfectly? Exactly, right? That doesn't happen. I don't care if you called USIC out there 14 times. You still have a little doubt. Well, the good thing is these locators have power mode and they have radio mode. And what these frequencies are for is when you're in power mode, you can pick up anything that is putting out 60 hertz all the way up to 1080 hertz. So if I was doing a dig area, and this was my dig area, I would just walk across the front of the dig area, put it in power mode. If I pick up a signal, then I would just follow it out. And then I would go down the side and do the same thing. So what can carry 60 hertz? Power, obviously. Steel gas mains carry 60 hertz because it comes off of the power poles or where it's grounded back at the house or the building. That 60 hertz will jump on the line. 400 pair, 200 pair phone cables, they love 60 hertz because again it reflects off of the overhead power or the grounding. So that's what it'll sound like. So anytime you dig, just grab your receiver and do a safety sweep. It takes 5 seconds, but it'll give you that little bit of extra confidence that there's nothing there. Then if you switch it to radio mode, see if we can pick it up in here. So what that is that's picking up radio towers, TV towers, even the signal that gives signal to all of the radar for the U.S. military is just a low frequency radio signal. And all of those bounce off of the copper in lines really well. So if you got phone cables out there, water services, even some ductile main, put it in radio mode as part of your safety suite. Power mode and radio mode. Do that dig area. Oh wait, there's his electric. I'm picking up the electric where he has it. Oh, I'm picking up another line here. Where's it taking me? Oh crap, there's electric going to the barn I didn't see. And I picked it up. And I didn't get anybody killed today. And I didn't have to stop for 6 hours because I had to wait for Ameren to show up to tell me, yeah, it's an electric line. Right? Thanks. So, what else, Kirk?
I think you covered a lot of the big issues. Like I said, guys, if you have any questions about stuff that you have problems with, now's the time to ask. He's right here. He's a professional in doing this. Like I said, I can't answer all your questions. I'm not doing it every day. Like I said, I'm learning with these as much as you are. But I know on a Friday afternoon when you're just starting to get that last pour done, you want to make sure that you're not having any issues digging and locating the lines so you can get done and home at a decent time. Because that's when most of our accidents usually happen is late in the evening.
Yep.
When you're in a rush. So if there's any questions, now's the time.
Another thing too is if you're out there doing like a locate because they're going to come dig Monday and it's Friday and you did a locate and you go home that night and you can't sleep, go back to that job on Monday. You messed up. I promise you. I promise you, it's on your mind. You know you missed something, go back out there because something's gonna happen if you don't go back and just verify.
Yeah, you left that on the ground.
At least 10 times as a locator. Last job on a Friday, run to the truck, and then go to the first job Monday, and your transmitter's not in the truck. Where was my last job Friday? And you know what? Nobody ever touches it. It's just still sitting there. Dead as a doornail, but it's there.
I got one thing. The biggest mistake I ever see people make, and USIC locators are terrible at it too. So if you want to check accuracy on one, people love, in the back I couldn't see him, but he's talking about swinging the locator. You don't have to swing it like that. When you're trying to locate a line that's 4 feet deep, and you get that, those USIC locators got that thing swinging, and they're putting paint on the ground and putting flags in, okay? Well, when it's swinging, from that beep, from where the cable is, from here to here, they don't know exactly where that's at, because they're going so fast. But when it's 4 feet deep, whether that locator is like this or like this, makes about 18 inches difference, okay? And they're swinging that thing, not a lot, but a little. And if it beeps when it's at this angle, that means it's over there, because it's pointing at the line. So if you want to get accurate on locating, you got to move it across like this, keep it vertical the whole time. Then when it beeps, it's pointing down. But I see the USIC locators all the time. You'll see them too. They're going like this. And if you get down to wanting to dig right there, get out and double check them if you can't find it. Because more than likely it's over here 18 inches or over here. Because they're doing this. Everyone I see is doing that. And it's easy to get close to the line like that. But if you want to find out where it's at, it's got to be hanging straight. Am I right on that?
That's what we went over.
Right, but when you were doing that,
No, I was
It was
showing
down
them
here.
what not to do.
right,
Right.
I understand, don't do that.
Right, right.
That's what I was saying too.
Yeah.
But we couldn't see you back there.
Yeah.
But just a little bit even. It's gotta stay vertical. Going back and forth like this.
And you do that just, like I said, by not moving your wrist back and forth just like this. That's all you're doing. You're keeping your blade straight to the ground. And again, a lot of times, if you don't do this a lot of times, what you get off course too, because you pick up your signal and you start marking the signal and you're not really, adjusting your gain anymore. And next thing you know, you're to the left of the line. So always try to be directly on top of the line as you're locating it. And how you do that, when you're in that guidance mode, you're never going to have that issue where you're over swinging, because it's going to force you to make sure it's quiet over the line. That means you're going to be directly over the line the whole time. So, use guidance mode as much as you guys can. If you guys want to come up here and check it out, it's up here too.
Like I said, locating guys, it's gonna be our responsibility for the customer we're working for Frontier, sometimes Consolidated. And when you're out there in the middle of country and there's only one phone line or one fiber to find, it's not that difficult. But some of us are, when we're in Champaign or Danville and working all under concrete, and it's not that easy to find, and the signal's bouncing off all the buildings. It's a lot more critical to make sure that you're isolated on the ones that you're doing. So when you're out there and you're just learning out there in the middle of the country, make sure that you're working with these tools and being comfortable with it out in the middle of the country. Getting a good solid foundation with locating these cables, because when you get into more congested areas where you have the cable TV and the 3 fibers and power, phone, gas, water, they're all there, and you want to know where in the hell all this stuff is because you have this much area to work. It's important that you're able to use these tools to help navigate where they're at, how deep they're at, and help you find them to make it through there successfully without hitting stuff.
And how many guys have tried to expose USIC locates and there's nothing there? Because their rule of thumb is, when in doubt, mark it out. That's their rule, because they don't want to pay for damages. They'd rather see you dig than have them be at fault for a damage. So if they pick up a signal and they're not quite sure, they're just gonna put paint down.
I mean, it's no surprise that when they're locating guys on a fiber and they're locating a duct package, especially in Champaign, you're gonna see a spot marked out this wide for their duct pack with a big diamond in the middle, okay? Or a single fiber that has two lines a foot apart with a dot in the middle. You know, they're covering their tail. And that's what we have to do too. We look pretty foolish when we're digging by a pedestal. We don't open it, we just get our backhoe out, no shovels, no spades. We're digging in front of a pedestal and we hit a line and that wasn't marked. Well, you know, it's kind of neglect because that pedestal's right there. We should have opened it up and did a little bit better job finding out where those phone lines are. You know, that's why we spent the money on all these, this new equipment, to help us prevent looking like fools to our customers. We don't want to be hitting their fiber, especially when we're responsible for finding it. And it saves paying for damage for all those other utilities that are out there that we can do our best at every day to try to find and avoid. Like I said, the bills will always find you. It's just a matter of time. I mean, they will. It never fails. If that guy comes out there and says it's not our fault, it's not him that's sending the bill. He's going to be, the person in the office doesn't know who the repairman was. He's just going to get that bill that Jansen Cable hit that, turn it in. They're going to send us a bill and hope that we pay it. It happens every single time on every single hit. Like I said, that's why we invested all that money in these machines to help us avoid those hits. And one hit can easily pay for that investment. So, like I said, if you have any questions, talk to Dave out here afterwards and get those answered.